Explore 2. We're continuing to learn how do landforms change over time. This is the second part of Explore 2. In this investigation, we're going to be exploring how does vegetation or plants, tree trunks, roots, and all of those things affect or change our landforms. That's kind of a fun thing to think about because when you think about plants and you think about rocks, did you ever realize that plants can change rocks? Pretty amazing, huh? Well, let's look at our learning intentions. We know that in this scope, we are learning how to make observations and or measurements to provide evidence of the effects of weathering or the rate of erosion by water, ice, wind, or vegetation. We know as scientists it's not just okay to say it happens. We have to prove it. We have to prove it with the observations we make with our eyes and our other senses, as well as the measurements we make. These observations and measurements can prove that change has happened. In this particular activity, we're going to learn how vegetation affects or changes the land, and you'll know you're successful with your learning when you can make observations or measurements to describe those changes, and that you can answer the science question using specific examples from those observations. Today in science class, we're going to be doing a pretty fun model to really help us understand the three concepts of weathering, erosion, and deposition. We're going to be looking at one more cause of weathering, erosion, and deposition by using a cookie. So if you're at home and you have a cookie at home and you want to try this right alongside of us, or in your class, you want to go home and give this a shot, all you need is a cookie and some toothpicks. Skewers or any small sticks work. So this model is representing Earth's materials like rocks and soil with our cookie. So hard earth materials, the ground, with the cookie. The toothpicks, they're going to represent vegetation. Okay? Vegetation meaning the plants, the trees, the bushes, the grass, everything that grows out of the ground, out of the earth materials. They can also lead to weathering, erosion, and deposition. And I'm going to show you some real life examples of that later in the video. But the way to look at this model and the way to examine this phenomena up close is to continue to practice using our good observation skills. So as we do our investigation, we're going to be looking closely for evidence of weathering, erosion, and deposition. Remember, weathering is the breaking apart into smaller pieces of earth materials, and erosion is when they're moved to a new place, and deposition is when they stop moving. It's where they're left. Okay? So let's start to look at our model in that lens. So I've got some earth materials. Do you already see some evidence of weathering? I do. I see some small pieces. Now, I haven't used any vegetation yet, so perhaps it was by gravity or another factor. Maybe there was a big wind that came through the room before I came in. To mimic vegetation, we're going to start off by taking our toothpick and just poking it near the edge of the cookie. I'm going to poke it right in there. And what did you notice? What did you notice? One, my toothpick broke, but take a look. Think about weathering, the breaking down of Earth's materials, erosion, the movement of those materials to a new place, and deposition, where those pieces end up. Can you make some observations of one of these processes in our model? Now, we know that weathering doesn't happen in just one spot on Earth's materials. It happens in a lot of different spots. So now I'm going to take two toothpicks because I need a little bit more strength in my vegetation, and I'm going to hold my cookie up. Okay? I'm going to mimic a big tree growing through the earth and see what happens when larger tree roots or bushes or what have you interact with Earth's surfaces or Earth's materials. So I'm going to push that on there, through there, and what happened? Let's take a closer look. Do we see evidence of weathering, the breaking apart into smaller pieces of Earth's materials? Let me bring you closer. Do we see evidence of erosion, those smaller pieces being moved? And do we see evidence of deposition, them landing in a spot and staying there? As we end our lesson today, I want to leave you with some images that show this amazing phenomena of how vegetation can cause weathering and erosion in rocks and hard earth materials.